We live in very interesting times today. The world is changing at a faster rate than it ever has in its history, and the technology that we have at our fingertips is allowing us to do unprecedented things. We have robots in China that can paint endless replicas of the Mona Lisa on a daily basis. We have ChatGPT that can literally generate text that sounds like human conversation in seconds. And we even have other AI image generation software that can make digital art that takes your breath away. And so with all these tools doing creative work for us, it begs the question, what does it even mean to be a creative person anymore? Growing up, I never really considered myself to be a creative person. I was always the kid in school who loved maths, science, the sort of person who gravitated towards logic, structure, reasoning, evidence-based thinking. But being creative? That was so far from anything that I associated myself with. Creative was a special word reserved for the likes of Picasso, Van Gogh, Leonardo da Vinci, Mozart, Steven Spielberg. It was for painters, musical prodigies, scriptwriters, directors, real artists, people who were born with an artistic gift and the ability to come up with original, world-changing, creative ideas. But for normal people like me, we're not creative, and to even try and dabble in that space felt like a really poor use of my time. And I remember being in year 10, going into year 11 and going through my subject selection form and looking through the list and thinking that doing physics, biology, chemistry, business was way more useful to me than any creative subject like English or art or painting. Because you see, for some reason, the science and math subjects seemed like more legitimate subjects because a lot of people would say they're the kind of subjects that lead to real jobs in the real world. But what I've come to realize recently is if all creativity is to you is just painting or singing or artistry, that's such a limited view of what creativity truly is. You know, because as I said earlier, there are robots that are able to paint replicas of the Mona Lisa on a daily basis as we speak. And so it begs the question, what's the difference between merely painting and doing something that's been done before and being a true artist or someone who truly is creative and does things that haven't been done before? And what if the thing that separates great artists from mere painters isn't just applicable to the field of painting, but applicable to everything that we do in life? A couple years ago, I came across a really interesting definition of the word creativity in a book I was reading by a man by the name of Seth Godin, someone whose work I greatly admire. And he made me, someone who comes from a background of business and science, he made me think about it in a way that I just hadn't considered before. And I'd love to share it with you. So firstly, he drew the distinction between having a creative hobby and doing creative work. Creative hobbies are great. You can love photography, painting, knitting, whatever floats your boat, but a hobby is for yourself. But what makes creative work different from a hobby is that creative work is done for others. It's not just work you do for yourself. And so you can't keep it to yourself. You've got to put it out there. And the fact that it is for others bears a certain responsibility with it that doesn't come with hobbies. And so with that in mind, Seth Godin's definition of creativity has three parts. Creativity is firstly work that can only be done by a human. So it's work that's done by a human and a robot can't do it. Secondly, creative work is work that changes things for someone else. So the thing that's been made or spoken or said or performed or delivered, if it doesn't lead to some change in someone else, whether that be a smile, a change in perception, them being informed, or some change, which is what we're trying to establish here, it's not creative work. And thirdly, and this is sort of connected to the second thing, when we go about changing things, there is always the potential risk that it might not work. And so that idea of it might not work implies that there's a level of generosity that we bring to creative work. That means that even though there's a risk of it not coming together, we do it anyway. So whether you're a teacher, a scientist, an accountant, a lawyer, a nurse, a businessman, or even a barista who serves coffee at a cafe, there is a way to go about doing your work in a creative manner. There is a way to serve a cup of coffee to a customer in a way that involves you showing up like a human being, connecting with them, seeing that opportunity as a chance to change them and move them, make their day a bit better, but it's also filled with that tiny bit of risk that it might not work. But if you approach being a barista like that, you are doing creative work. And the same applies for teaching and the process with which you approach trying to change and inspire your students. The same can be said for being a nurse. Even though, yes, you are following policies and procedures in dealing with your patients, the small interactions you have with their family members is an opportunity to do creative work, to connect with them, and to make that interaction something good in the middle of a tough time. As I finish my degree, I've been thinking more and more about the world of work and the things that go on after my time at university. And most recently, at my job in the university, I've been involved in creating curriculum that teaches other students how to be creative. And it's been such a cool process to talk to people from different fields and backgrounds, businessmen, people from the humanities and communication arts, people from science, people from the mental health sector, people who are performing in the industry in creative arts, and to hear them all talk about what creativity is, and to spend time pulling apart this word and the different connotations that surround it, and to form a definition that makes sense to me. And the more that I think about it, the more I realize that, creativity isn't limited to a specific sphere or those artistic subjects. Creativity isn't just sitting in a room all by yourself and meditating till original ideas fall into your lap. Literally anyone can make the decision to approach the work that they are doing as creative work. To show up as a human being with all your limitations, with the intent to change things, and the understanding that it might not work, but you do it anyway, and you show up generously, because if you don't do it, then who else will? Because you see, we don't need more mediocre copywriters. We don't need you to just show up and be compliant and follow instructions like a factory worker. We don't need you to memorize information and then regurgitate it back in a test to a teacher who already knows the answers to all the questions. We need creative thinkers more than ever. Individuals who don't follow the status quo, but challenge it. Individuals who realize that they were not made to fit in, but to stand out. People who want to live intentionally and make a difference with the work that they do. People who are generous enough to be willing to fail and learn from it. Because in an age where robots are replacing people and jobs in so many industries, the one thing a robot can never be is creative. And so now more than ever, we need you to be a creative thinker and to bring us your creative work.